All right, here we go. Ready? Okay. You sure you're ready, Hassan?
Let me just text my mom real quick.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I think we should be recording while he's texting his mother.
Hey.
Let me know when you're ready.
And good.
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast, a multi-generational discussion of movies.
Welcome to the party, pal!
I'm Ralph Quartrucci.
I'm Sean Paul Murphy.
I'm Hassan.
I'm just Al.
Thanks, guys. All right, so today we're going to talk about a movie that I brought to the table. And again, this is a discussion between generations. So we have a couple of guys that are Gen X, Baby Boom, and we have a millennial, and we have an Oregon Trail, which I guess that's a micro. What does that mean when you say micro?
Micro, so it'd be like a 5-year window.
Oh, and is that Wikipedia? How do we know that?
That was a Huffington Post article.
Oh, very good.
Yes.
So we have some reference.
I wish rather than Oregon Trail was trail mixed. I'm hungry.
Oh, boy. Well, that's what happens when you do these late.
But you might die of dysentery. That's the only problem.
Okay. So the idea is that one of us will bring a movie to the group that means something to them, that is important to them, that they just want to share. I mean, it could be any movie. Originally, we had started out that it would be, Sean and I would be doing 70s movies, but we kind of expanded off that to invite a couple other guys in, and now we have this, which is a multi-generational thing, which is awesome, I think. So today is my movie, and I'm picking a movie that is one of my favorite movies of all time. It fits right into mine. As I've done these podcasts, I realize that my sweet spot is realism in movies. That as I talk about other movies, you know, fantasy movies or, you know, whatever, musicals or whatever they are, it turns out I really like movies that are, you know, based in some fact and are very straightforward. And this movie definitely
like Birdman?
fits that. Birdman was a little, well, that was based in realism, or
It's all real. Like it's like a real person's
like they really
life.
shot the movie.
I think
Like
they really shot it. Yeah, I think they did.
Right.
I just don't understand how you guys couldn't separate like what was actually happening and what was happening in his head. That seems real to me. They're able to show what's happening in someone's head.
We've opened up some old wounds.
I know. We don't need to bring that up again. We've
saying.
already litigated that one in an earlier podcast. So anyway, my movie is The Taking of Pelham 123, the 1974 version, not the 2009 version.
That sucked.
That sucked. Although we will kind of compare and contrast those because there's issues I want to bring up in this movie that are definitely different from the movie that was done by Tony Scott.
Like having John Travolta play.
Well, that'd be one because I don't think Travolta was, how old was he in 74?
Probably like Grease age, right?
And Grease was 76?
77.
77. Okay. Why do I like this movie? Well,
I don't know, Ralph. Why do you like this movie?
It's based in real. It's a procedural crime thriller. It stars. Well, let me just explain a little bit. It stars Walter Matthau, Robert Shaw, main two guys. It's a subway heist movie. A bunch of guys go on a subway in New York City, and they hold the train for ransom, and they're trying to get $1 million out of New York City. So let's watch the trailer, and we'll comment on what we think after the trailer.
1:23 p.m.
Great music in the trailer.
A crowded subway train starts its run from Pelham Station in the Bronx. 1:45 p.m.
You know, I'm going to have to
Four
check the movie and see
desperate,
whether these
heavily
times
armed
are right in
men
the
seize
trailer.
control of the train,
Open the door or I'll blow your head off.
taking 17 people as hostages.
Your attention, please. Now then, you'll all remain seated. Anybody who tries to rise is going to get shot. I do hope I have made myself understood.
2:13 p.m. The city of New York is given 1 hour to come up with $1 million ransom.
You're out of your skull.
All units stand by on the double.
What's up, Z?
The train's been hijacked.
Millions have read it. Now you can live it. The Taking of Pelham. 1, 2, 3.
We'll never make it. The passengers are dead ducks.
What the hell they expect for that lousy 35 cents to live forever?
Walter Matthau, Robert Shaw. The most spectacular hijack in history. The Taking of Pelham. 1, 2, 3.
Directed by Joseph Sargent. What else did Joseph Sargent direct?
Wasn't Dick Sargent
he
in...
directed Jaws, one of the later Jaws sequels.
He did? Oh,
was
he
a pretty
directed.
good-
I think he directed the worst. No, did he do Jaws #2?
He did Jaws 3D, the one with all the porn.
He
All the
could
what?
work. He was a
What?
director who could work in 3 dimensions.
What do you mean all the porn? In
Wait a
Jaws
second.
3D?
Ring the bell.
That-
You know, I almost worked with Sargent.
Joseph Sargent?
Joseph Sargent.
On
I
what?
was. He did a movie called The Wall. It was produced by Showtime about items left at the Vietnam Wall.
Oh.
That was supposed to be an omnibus series, and I wrote one of the episodes for it.
Oh, wow.
But when they made it a movie, I think they only used 3 of them, and mine was not used.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
Yeah, so I could have
sure.
worked with him. He actually wasn't attached
So you
to the
didn't work
project.
with him. You just
No, he wasn't attached to the project yet. In fact, the producer that brought me into it didn't even end up on the end credits either.
was he primarily a TV director?
No, he was a theatrical
Really?
director as well, but I think he was just an excellent journeyman director. No one's ever going to call him an auteur, but he did a lot of theatrical features, and he did a lot of television movies, and he did some cable movies too. And he's a guy who did a ton of movies and had a very long, successful career. you
Well,
know.
this is one of my favorite that he did, and partly I asked about the TV question because it's a very straightforward shot, straightforward, right? Not fancy camera moves, but every shot is framed in a way that it's telling a story. You get people in the background. New York, like we always talk about, this was shot in New York City. It looks real because it was shot in New York City. So I even think some of the extras that are standing around are probably really New York people. So anyway, why do I love this movie? I love it because it's a straightforward crime thriller. And I talk about this all the time with no backstory, right?
Yeah.
The only backstory we know about is the one character named Mr. Brown. No, Mr. Brown. Who is Hector Alonso's character?
He was kicked out of the mafia.
He was because he was kicked out. He was too rough for the mafia, so they kicked him out. That's the only backstory we know.
No, we get a little more backstory. I mean, tiny amounts.
From whom?
Robert Shaw is a
mercenary.
A mercenary.
You know he's a mercenary.
We know that Mr. Gray was Mr. Green
was the
trainman.
But that's it.
Yeah,
We don't know their wives. We don't know
Wasn't
they
there
had
something
kids.
fishy with Mr. Green? Like,
Well, he was the
What
reason.
happened?
Well, he's okay. First of all, we're going to do one other thing. We're now going to take one of the color names because I want to use the names from the show. So I'm going to be Mr. Brown,
I'll be Mr. Blue.
Hassan,
Mr. Green, right?
Mr. Green, and
Who's left?
Gray.
All right.
He was Mr. Gray, wasn't he?
That's perfect for you,
Yeah,
dude.
that was
Yeah,
Robert
why
Shaw
is
was
that?
Mr. Gray.
You know,
No,
Gray.
Robert Shaw was Mr. Blue.
He was.
Yeah. Let's not forget that.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Blue, tell me about backstory when it comes to movies.
Well, to me, I think the major problem with, one of the major problems is too much backstory, and I think if you look at, I blame the screenwriters, because if you look at all the screenwriter books that come out now, they essentially, they want you to give more and more backstory for characters. And, if you just look at the example between this version and the later version, where they, not Robert Shaw, the Walter Matthau character, we know essentially nothing about.
Yeah, when he's introduced, what's he doing?
He's sleeping.
He's
sleeping. And, he has this exciting case, but I have a feeling after they go through all and track everything down, a week later, he'll be sleeping on the job again. We don't know anything about him other than that he's a cool guy. He's a
chill guy.
Yeah, he's
right.
chill. He's got a sense of humor. And so when they update his character to be played by Denzel Washington, who's also a fine actor,
Has a wife at home.
Yeah, he's got a wife at home. Come on home and be sure to bring the milk with you. Yeah,
and that's and Hassan, how do you feel about?
Having backstory for characters isn't a bad thing. Having backstory for characters isn't a bad thing.
Now, have you seen both these movies?
I have. I've seen both of them.
And you find the backstory in the second one?
No, I mean I like the older one more, just because the newer one is more cheesy. But the characters now are driving a lot of story. We're getting so much so many dynamic characters, and it's adding all these layers to the human mind and stuff like that, and their life.
But do you need that to see? What I love about this movie is I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
I know there's a cop who's trying to catch the criminal, Mr. Blue, who is a really good criminal. He's leading three other people that are on the subway train.
4 of them, 4 of us.
That's right. There you go. That's why we were able to use the colors.
We should commit a crime.
And, the idea is they gave him a time limit. You've got, I don't know, I forget what it was.
1 hour.
1 hour to come up with the money. And I don't care about Walter Matthau's wife at home.
We don't know if he was married or not.
We don't know anything about him except
did he have a key? Did he even have I never bothered to look. Does he even have a ring on?
I don't even know. I know he wore a yellow shirt and a plaid tie.
Did you care more about Denzel Washington because he was corrupt, that he was stealing?
That's fine for the older movie. It's fine for the older movie that they didn't have any backstory, but they can't remake the movie without the backstory, because then
you can remake a movie shot for shot.
What are they going to be doing different?
Why
even do
is
it?
that because today's audiences couldn't sit through? I don't think, and I think this movie's very short. It's
an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's short.
It's say an episode of Law and Order, pretty much. It's longer than an episode of Law and Order, but
not a
why
special
not
extra
just
edition
watch a television episode or whatever?
But my point is, audiences probably wouldn't sit through the 74 version.
Wouldn't
now.
pay for it.
It would be on TV.
This is a TV episode.
Right.
The story's very simple. It's the setup simple.
By simple, you mean clean.
Clean, yes.
Right.
It's not. It's very straightforward.
Right. And does it follow? And Sean, you're here for structure for us.
Yes,
you're a structure
I am
guy.
the
We know that
structure
we say
guy.
that every podcast, but it's true. Break down the structure for us.
The structure is it's very beautiful. It's very clean. The writer is Peter Stone. I think he's one of the few writers that has won an Oscar, a Tony, and a.
What do you
Going
call
for
it?
the EGOT?
Is it an EGOT? Is that what it's called?
So he's a great writer, and it's very clean. You get the characters are all introduced early. You got they set up the time clock. The middle act is all getting the money there, and then we have the exciting chase at the end, and and hunting down those that survive. I mean, it's a simple 3-act structure. There's no problems.
And we don't need, like in the 2009 version, the backstory for the Garber character, which is the same character. It's Denzel playing Garber, and it was Walter Matthau playing Garber.
Yeah, do we like him more because he was corrupt?
That's right.
Yeah.
The corruption angle. So now he has a what do you call it? He comes up and he shoots the guy at the end. By the way, spoilers on all these podcasts. By the way, we don't. Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie by this time, there's nothing we can do for you. But we're going to spoil it.
Yeah, you have. How many
Redemption.
years did they have
So he
to
doesn't
see
have
this one?
Well, the
they have,
74 version.
Yeah,
long time.
40-something years.
Something
to see
like
this
that.
One.
And
I don't want to give away what year we're doing these podcasts.
Yeah, we got to stay current.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sexual harassment going on now.
Exactly that. Nothing. We won't mention anything like Louis C.K. or anything.
That's 3.
Not at all. I never heard of Walter Matthau masturbating in front of anybody publicly.
The problem,
but if we were alive back then,
we don't know.
So with social media, we would know.
Probably. I mean, Kennedy was around in '63. I think there was some hanky-panky going on back then.
Maybe you should ask Jerry Stiller. I'm sure he knows.
Jerry Stiller's in this movie too. Thank you. That's
right.
He's
love
great. And that's okay.
The beauty of it.
But I want to get to before I get to Jerry Stiller, which brings me to, and I'll get to it, the comedy used in this movie, even though it's a thriller, it isn't over the top. All of it works subtly. It's a crime thriller. It's also got some very funny parts to it. I would say 1 or 2 are a little over the top. The Mayor is one of them. We'll talk about that. But I want to get back to your structure, because you told me at one point that the way script writing is taught now, that people can look at a piece of paper and go, if it has the right structure, it must be a good script. Explain that.
Oh, yeah. Well, now they're, in the olden days of Hollywood, the people were essentially, who ran the studios were storytellers, and they had their own instincts. But now, a lot of the people who run the stories, a lot of people who make decisions are like MBAs. They're more money managers. And so, therefore, they rely on, script writing books. Like right now, the big script book is Save the Cat. And if you look through this paradigm, you can see where this has to happen by this page. Every act, every action, they break it down by the page. Now, if you're about to make a movie, and you don't, I read this about a number of studio executives about the stress on picking the movies. It is that they're afraid because obviously they're investing a huge amount of money, so they trust that these screenwriting books are accurate because it's like, oh, I like the script, but what if it's not any good? And then they can say, well, look at it. It does everything a good script's supposed to do. So if the movie fails, they can say, well, at least the script I picked was good, because it followed the paradigm.
It has hit the first act by 30 minutes in, right?
Yeah, about that, or a little shorter. And when I started screenwriting, it was Sid Field's Screenplay was the big book. But when you get to these later books like Story and things like that, it was more about developing, the character and all. And movies are always really, whether you like a movie, it really depends on the characters. But how much you have to say about them and how much you need to say about them is the big problem. I mean, let's take a look at an example of like Casablanca. What do we know about Rick? He ran guns to the, to the communists, the leftists in Spain. We knew he was in France. We knew he had all sorts of things, but we don't know whether he was ever married.
Well,
we don't know anything about what he did in the United States.
Let's talk about that for a sec, because Casablanca, I'm sure I've seen it, but I don't remember. Did they ever flash back to the relationship that he had with Ingrid
with Elsa, but nothing before that? But you're looking at a 40-year-old man. The guy was probably 40 years old.
Right.
What happened before the Nazis took Paris?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
We know nothing about that. And if you look at perhaps the most successful film of all time, Gone with the Wind, Rhett Butler, one of the pivotal roles in movie history, all the backstory you hear about him is in two sentences when they're first talking about him. One is that, he's not received by the best families in Charleston, and that he went to the North. He was educated in the North. And, what else do you need? Because if you write the characters well, their actions are going to, reflect who they are. But I think now we live in a society where people want more answers. It's sort of like, I was talking to a girl who was writing a very talented young writer, and she doesn't have anything produced, so we don't need the bell.
I went for the bell. Just
she has like a female character in it who's like 36 years old and never been married and no discernible boyfriend. And I brought her to some other people, and we were all everybody was saying, you have to say why she doesn't have a boyfriend.
Way to put her business out there, dude.
Yeah,
she's gonna listen to this podcast one day.
She'll be happy. Yeah, I've already.
But why would? Yeah, so people need answers.
Yeah, people want answers. But the thing is, if the story is moving along, and then you see her relating to other people, you should know why she either does or doesn't have a boyfriend.
Right. So back to this one. Very clean structure. We know motivations. Garber's trying to solve the crime. Mr. Blue is trying to perpetuate the crime or whatever.
Yeah.
He wants his money.
Yeah.
He's got. You got hostages in there, and we got a clock ticking.
Yeah,
and they're able to bring in other characters, real characters, who add to the story but don't slow it down at all. Including we talked about Jerry Stiller, the mayor, who all have relationships to Walter Matthau.
The mayor I was confused about because it just seemed like such a useless role in the movie.
Well, did you know who Ed Koch was?
I didn't. That's the thing. I was wondering if there was
anything
going on around the time.
That was a direct impersonation of Ed Koch, and how we thought Ed Koch would be in his private, up in his bedroom.
That would have been helpful to know.
And to me, that was the most over-the-top comedy in this one, because Jerry Stiller had some brilliant lines, that were just fantastic, and you felt like, again, without any backstory, that these guys had a relationship that went on for a long time.
Yeah,
including the guy that Garber punches and knocks down, and I think the actor actually fell down when it happened, because you see guys grabbing him when he fell, because he said something that got Garber angry. But you knew that they had a relationship. I didn't have to see a flashback saying
to them at a barbecue.
Who knows? I mean, you just felt like Jerry Stiller and him had known each other forever, and the way they talked to each other.
Garber, I want to thank you for inviting me over to this barbecue, because my mother died last week, and you've been kind to me through all these years, especially when we went to college together.
I'd
Yay,
want to know
Princeton.
about that. I'd want to know
Yeah.
what they were like in college.
Why? Why do you need?
I feel like they
this is the
probably got
millennial
pretty
talking.
wild. I feel like he probably rocked that same shirt back in college too.
The yellow shirt. You're
That yellow
obsessed
plaid
with that
shirt.
yellow shirt.
I'm not obsessed with it. It just sticks out. Like,
Now, in the 2009 version, the shirt that Denzel wore is an homage to whatever. I don't know what. I don't know if he's wearing a plaid tie.
it's at least
Denzel.
yellow.
It's something. Al, you're being very quiet about this movie, and I need your thoughts on this movie.
What is there to say? It's very simple. It gets the job done.
Take us down the Oregon Trail on this.
Yes. What is the?
The Oregon Trail. I mean, it's entertaining. You know, it has. It's very fast paced. Keeps the movie rolling along.
Is there any scene that? We're all coughing today.
Yeah.
We need is there a cough button we need? Or
It's that time of the year. I was gonna die this morning.
Really? Do I
BT
just have to
dubs.
edit those out? I think I have to edit those out. So, is there a scene in there that you hated, or is there? How'd you feel about the music score? Is there anything in there that?
The great score. That is one of the best scores.
Well, I
ever.
love the score. I love the score.
I like the score. I think
David
it's pretty
Shire,
Yeah, Mr.
which
David
I just
Shire.
found out from our Oregon Trail friend that David Shire also did the music in Zodiac.
Which is not at all like the
Well, they could-
score to
Well, maybe
Taking
he
a
was,
Pelham.
learning because it's
yeah.
how many years apart are those two movies?
Yeah,
Or
he
maybe
probably
they're,
was
like, different
learning.
But I
movies.
love that. Speaking of the score, I actually play the score when I'm riding in the subway here in D.C. I put the headphones on and I slap that title sequence on, and I just go crazy. I love it. Do you like the score or not like the
No,
score?
I hate the score.
Why do you hate the score?
Because I
The
hate
only person who hates this score.
That's crazy.
the score reminds me of Dragnet, which I'm not a big fan of Dragnet.
What's that score? How's that score sound?
It's all very horn based and like
Right.
it's all
very
farty
horny
horns,
score.
you know.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's farty horns. There's no other timbre. There's
when
no
I
other
he-
instruments.
But it
I
fits for the movie.
It is a very 70s score because it's clean. It's just if you watch that title sequence with the giant fonts and that soundtrack, it just says everything the movie's about right there. And then the credits come up and you're like, it's the same thing.
I just don't like horns as a primary instrument in my soundtracks.
Well, that's interesting. Interesting.
It can be there in the background or being a supporting kind of instrument, but I don't like it as a driving force. I'm more of a orchestral.
So you need, is it big? And how was Zodiac? Was that more orchestral?
No, that was more of like a Trent Reznor soundtrack. It kind of reminded me of the Facebook soundtrack a little bit, just because of the moody piano and stuff.
Well, isn't that who does all his soundtracks?
Yeah, no, David Fincher's.
Yeah. Dragon Tattoo. I think
Yeah.
they did that one too, right?
Yeah, I like electronic scores. I like orchestral. I just do not like brass scores.
I thought it was fantastic.
I'm going to take
But
that
again-
into account when the next films I pick. I'm
Yeah.
going to keep away from the horn-based.
Yeah, well, I
soundtracks.
guess if you want a good review, whatever this is that we do, that Al needs no
I
horns,
am desperate
no
to win
farty
Al's
horns. Is that what
approval.
you said?
No farty horns.
No 40 horns. Well, there you go. That's the.
Hassan, what do you think about farty horns?
I like horns. I'm good with horns. I wish there was more cowbell.
In
I
the
would
movie?
love to hear more cowbell.
Yeah,
I feel like everything could.
it
actually
makes
use
it
some
easier when you have a
cowbell.
fever.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're
By
doing
the way,
shtick.
people,
By the
we
way,
are-
no shtick in the podcast.
We are all
That's a
sick
different
to a
podcast.
degree. I just want the audience
My
to know.
shtick's fine.
So let me get back to the movie because we
Well,
keep drifting.
let me. Okay,
no,
you
go
get
ahead.
back
No,
to
no,
the
no.
movie.
Go ahead. Dive in.
No, I think it's the one thing I really enjoy now watching it is the utter political correctness. I mean, the people seem real.
The lack of political
The
correctness.
lack
or
of
yeah.
utter lack of
Yeah.
political correctness. I mean,
That's
it was
that's
a
New York for you.
transitional period.
Well,
you
we
know.
had a guy that didn't want any ladies down in the
Yeah,
working in the subway.
whole thing's gone to hell since they down into the
Yeah,
toilet.
but
since
she
they let
did. She
ladies
did
in.
lose her wedding ring in the sink. Okay,
Yeah,
that
and
could
the
probably
toilet.
Right, that would never happen to a dude.
Totally
obviously.
proved him right.
Yeah, 'cause
And we have Walter Matthau walking the Japanese head of the subway system in
Japan,
who he
Tokyo.
thinks don't understand anything he's saying. He's insulting them left and right.
And he's insulting the other people too.
He
Like,
insults everybody.
You know, like
The
Rico,
mafia.
he goes,
Right.
yeah,
He's actually
yeah.
a dick.
For the weekend, he works for the mafia.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
and even I think they call Dolowitz a dumb Polak.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody calls him. You know.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly now.
Yeah, and what I love is he is just Dolowitz is one of my favorite little characters.
Which guy? Which one is he? He's the guy
He's
that
the
runs
guy-
the subway.
He's the guy, the little guy that goes that walks.
Kaz Dolowitz?
Yeah,
That one.
Kaz Dolowitz.
The crazy, dumbass son of a bitch stopped there.
He's halfway between stations. What the hell's going on down
Your
there?
mental case. I'm gonna nail this pecker to the goddamn wall for this.
Guys, take it easy, will you?
Oh, come on. If I gotta watch my language just because they let a few broads in, I'm gonna quit. How the hell can you run a goddamn railroad without swearing?
Grand Central Terminal. This is the desk train master. Who the hell's in charge down there?
One thing I was thinking is that in a normal movie, because I've been watching some movies lately, big surprise for a guy in the movie podcast, but usually the guy who says something about women or gays or something
Dies
is always
first.
the first one to die. And what's amusing about this film is he's saying bad things about women, and
He died.
he's the first one to die. But they're not killing him for that reason. They sort of like no one is judging him for, this film is not judging him for his actions.
No, the bad guy.
He's actually a brave
He's trying
guy.
to get his train back.
Yeah, I mean, he's
brave
got-
or
he's got-
stupid. Brave or stupid. Because I mean,
Well, he
I
just thinks he can bluff right into it.
well, not bluff. He doesn't. Nobody's ever stolen a.
Yeah.
I think this was 74. I don't know how many hijackings were going on at the time.
back in the
Probably a lot of
70s, yeah.
planes and stuff. But a train. That's why they keep saying in the.
Yeah.
They keep talking. Why are you stealing a train? Go get a plane. Why are you doing this to me? So he goes
Yeah.
down to get his train back, and he gets shot and killed. But I
Yeah,
never
but-
looked at the angle. He was the one talking about women, and he's the first one to get killed.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He is probably, he is definitely not politically correct.
I couldn't tell if the movie was kind of portraying how sexist and prejudiced people were back then, or like if it was trying to make a comment on.
Well, I think they were being like even Walter Matthau, who gets on the
Yeah.
phone with McDaniels, Sergeant McDaniels or Lieutenant McDaniels, who's an African-American police officer.
Yeah.
But Walter Matthau's talking to him on the phone, so he doesn't know what he looks like. He finally meets him, and what's he say?
He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were."
I thought you were taller.
Right,
I don't know what I was.
I don't know what I thought.
Mr. Daniels.
Daniels.
Oh, I thought you were like a shorter guy. I don't know what I thought.
Yeah, so
I
they-
really love Julius Harris, who plays him, because he's also in a New York James Bond film,
Live and
Live or
Let
Let Die, which is sort of like a blaxploitation James Bond film. He's in that as well. He's one of the henchmen in that, and it's good to see him in this one. And I think he's a great actor.
Well, they skirted all around racism and sexism in this. They didn't skirt
Well,
around
did
it.
they
dived right in.
They dove right in. That's
Well,
right.
the thing I'm asking is like, did they do that because they didn't notice it was racist or sexist, or because they were trying to like use it as a comment on racism? And
No,
sexism?
it wasn't a comment. I think people were sexist and racist.
I think it was just a reflection
So
of the
maybe
time.
they
Yeah, I
just
think it was
thought
definitely a
was, like,
reflection of the
just-
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, everybody got their comeuppance, right? So
Yeah.
Kaz gets killed.
Yeah.
Walter Matthau finally realizes the Japanese guys understand what he was saying, and they go, "Thank you, thank you."
Yeah.
So he looks like a fool.
Hey, what the hell are all these Chinamen doing in here, huh?
Holy Christ, I forgot. Johnny, would you take these monkeys up to 13?
It is all right, Lieutenant Garba. I'm sure we can find it by ourselves.
And thank you for a most instructive visit, Lieutenant.
And most exciting too, Lieutenant. Most exciting. Most exciting.
Looks skillful all around.
He's the smartest guy in the room. He solves the crime. He's no
Hey,
fool.
let's not forget Mr. Hector Alonso is kind of a racist
What's
too.
his name? Mr. Brown is the one guy that stuttered, and Mr.
Gray.
Mr. Gray.
Hits the black guy in the eye with the gun.
Give me Mr.
Yeah, well,
Ray.
he's a racist pig, right? And sexist. He was doing it all.
Yeah, yeah.
He had it all, and the mafia.
Yeah,
hated
he
him. He got kicked out of the
He could
mafia.
have banged that girl and
Right.
and still do his job.
He got and he got his comeuppance. What happened to him?
Mr. Gray, will you bring that gun back here, please?
So what if something's gone wrong? What if they're waiting for us up there? I want some heavy artillery with me.
Mr. Gray, I won't ask you again.
Blow it out of your ass, Mr. Blue.
Oh, my God.
Take another look out there. Let's get his money. Come on.
With that $20 hooker.
The $20 hooker. Yeah, they make fun of hookers too.
He couldn't get a kiss for.
Well, I
$20.
mean, listen. All the subway. It's like any subway movie, any bus movie. If you look at Speed, if you look at this one, they're all stereotypes, right? You have to have the old Jewish guy. You got to get the lady that's drunk. You got to get the $20 hooker. You got to get the Spanish lady. You got to have the, it's just you go through.
You got to
the
have
line.
the homosexual.
That's the funny thing.
Is there a
it is.
Which one's
If you
a
look at the credits in the film, and I was just looking at the IMDb, there is a guy listed as the homosexual. The mother. The alcoholic, the pimp.
What's wrong, dude? Ain't you never seen a sunset before?
And I'm sitting there thinking, I've seen this film dozens of times, and I didn't know one of them was gay.
Well,
usually I have pretty good gaydar.
Well, you couldn't tell. I mean, which one did they say? You don't know which one? I don't know.
No,
There's a couple of guys on there.
There's not a picture on the IMDb of which one it is.
Was it the guy screaming when the red lights weren't switched over? I mean, that's how do you know?
That was the rabbi, wasn't it?
No, there was an old Jewish guy who was saying they're gonna go. Don't worry, they're gonna go red. I've been on here forever. Right.
Yeah. They got
They're not, but they're
and they had not the yoga lady, the lady that was meditating.
Yeah, she was the hippie.
The hippie, right? And they had the the other thing they did too. Okay, so you talk about sexism and all that, but they had a cop that was on the train that everybody knew there was an undercover cop.
Yeah.
And they kept saying it must be a lady cop because she's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right, so that kind of fed into because they said, you know what? No, it must be a lady because she's not doing anything. Well,
when's that cop gonna open up?
Right.
Well, what do you expect? There's all those machine guns, and for all we know, it's a woman.
Right. Right. So that was
that
the time.
plays
That was
off
a
at the
reflection,
end
and
when-
frankly, it's a reflection of times now. It's not much different.
Yeah.
Except people are now a little more politically correct in the movies.
They're not going to say it.
That's right. You couldn't make Blazing Saddles now. Okay,
No.
we'll just talk about that one.
I played that in my backyard, and my neighborhood's a mixed neighborhood, and we got the speakers going and all, and I'm sitting there thinking, this might have been a mistake.
That could be a problem with that movie. You guys haven't seen that.
I haven't.
I'm pointing at the millennial and you haven't seen it?
I have not. No.
And you haven't seen it.
I
Hassan,
haven't seen
I'm
it,
pointing
but
at
I
Hassan.
want to see it.
Well, Sean and I are going to
it.
do a 16 millimeters film screening for you guys, and we may actually do a live podcast while we're watching that because I think that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
So,
and we'll watch it on.
Back to this. I
film.
want to get into. I want to talk about
cringing.
the difference between this one and the 2009.
Yeah.
Right. And specifically about extra characters that are in the 2009 version. Now they're kind of the same characters. I'm talking specifically the mayor. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the mayor in the 1974 version had a very important part where he had to come up with the money. He had to approve the money.
He only had one job to do.
One job to get the money that they could get down there in time.
And he was comic relief, and he had one job.
That's right. Now in the 2009 version, the mayor was played by whom?
James Gandolfini.
And what did James now explain to me the scenario when you put someone that high profile in a movie that's just sort of a side character. What do they have to do in the movie to make him?
I mean, I'm only guessing, but I have been in situations where you change roles when you get a bigger actor, and you have to. My guess is that they expanded this role when they knew they could get him. But he's probably, if he were looking at that original role, he's like, well, why would I want to be that guy? So not only did they expand him, you see him on the subway, they give him more of a character. Then in one of the straight, the mayor in the original film, went down to the site, but he never addressed the killers. This film,
well, they didn't even show him go down to the site.
They didn't, but he did go down to the
site.
site.
But he knew he would get booed. He didn't want to get booed, right?
Yeah, you hear the booing in the
the
background.
The mayor's here.
The mayor's here. But the mayor doesn't interact with the hijackers. In this film, because you got Gandolfini, of course he's going to interact with them. They say, hey, I'll trade all these people for you, and so he gets to have a decision.
And doesn't he actually solve the crime, or doesn't he actually?
Yeah, and that's just,
the mayor in the 2009.
We have all these police characters in the film, including, then we got Denzel Washington, but who figures out who the guy is just based on that he was dating a
PR person,
butt model or something.
Oh.
Yeah, and
butt model,
an ass model or something, I think.
Who Gandolfini wasn't?
No, the John Travolta character. Yeah. Like, one of the most important things, finding the identity of the people, is given to a tertiary character. It's only because they got a big actor.
Right, and then you're right.
You don't do that.
Right.
The hero usually figures it out. Maybe his sidekick. You know, the mayor was neither of those in this
Right.
film.
Well,
they were just expanding the role to fit the
to
actor.
fit the actor. Well, in the 74 version, yeah, the mayor does his thing, and that's it. You don't see him. You don't hear from him ever again. They get the money down there, which is the other. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. The transporting the money from wherever bank they get the money
Federal Reserve
to the train.
Yeah.
Now compare and contrast those two scenes, where they're speeding in a car, police car. Both movies, they get in an accident. Now, the accident in the 74 version, they kind of slam into some shed and the car flips
little
over.
newspaper kiosk.
Flips over, right?
Motorcycles.
They hit a motorcycle maybe. And tell me what happens in Hassan, in the 2009 version, what happens in that car chase? Or that car,
I don't
no, it wasn't a
remember
chase,
that.
it was a...
I don't remember that.
You don't remember. You
And
don't remember
like-
the cars flipping over 17 times?
It's
and
like
going
they
up
fall
over
off
a bridge?
it
Right.
falls over,
It
it
happens so
bursts into
often now in
flames.
theaters that
That's what I'm saying. So
I don't
you don't even remember the car flipping over 18 times, landing on a bridge, falling off the bridge, down and spinning in the... Right?
No.
It was Tony Scotted or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how things are ginned up now. I guess to keep... I mean, that's the
This
way
was
Tony
exciting
Scott,
enough. We had people's lives at stake. This
It
film,
felt- well, the
the
cops-
74 was exciting enough. There was no need to add all that.
I wouldn't call it
yes to it.
exciting.
You wouldn't call it
Wasn't-
exciting?
I thought the
I wasn't
ending
like
was
at the
extremely
edge of my seat.
You weren't at the edge of the seat. You thought that everything was going to be okay?
I knew everything was
They
going to be
shot
okay.
a hostage
Yeah.
because they didn't get there in time.
They shot Cass, Fat Cass.
Well, first they shot Kaz, then they shot the conductor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of figured he would die anyway.
I thought
The
I really
conductor?
cared
Yeah.
about the characters. I always.
You couldn't
I'm always
care
very
about
tense.
anyone.
Well, when that poor conductor realized that, when they said, "Mr. Conductor, stand
Yeah.
up, please," and,
I
and
cared
then
about
Robert
the
Shaw
mother
doing
and the
that. Robert
kids.
Shaw, but look, can we talk about Robert Shaw for a second?
Yeah.
How good was he in this movie?
He was terrific.
Right?
Wait,
It
was
was
this
just
before
this
he was
and
loaded all the
Jaws.
time?
This was the same time. No, this
Oh.
was Jaws was 74, so it was probably Jaws came out in 74. So obviously they were shooting Jaws probably while this one was going. I don't know how it all works, right? So this movie, Pelham came out in 74, same as Jaws. So and Robert Shaw's in both movies.
Yeah, you could hardly do better. If all he ever did was Jaws in this movie, he'd be,
Well, I love them in both, and this one
And then sadly, he didn't live that long.
well he died in 70.
Yeah, he died at a very young age. But he
was
was
the
in a
alcohol
lot of
that
those
got him.
British,
Yeah.
like World War II. He died in 78.
But again,
51 years
all we
old.
knew about him in this movie was he was
He was in The Sting too.
Yes.
He was the bad guy in The Sting.
He's a good bad
And
guy.
Russia from Love, he killed. He
Right.
was the Russian agent.
wasn't he? Yeah, he.
Who like that movie started off with a false start where you see James Bond going around and somebody kills him, and but then it turns out it was just a person wearing a James Bond mask and it was a rehearsal.
Does that have anything to do
never
with the
happened.
movie Two Parrots with Love?
The John Travolta movie?
Yeah.
No, I hope.
They're related.
You're
at
bringing
all?
up Travolta movies?
Is John
Face Off.
Travolta redoing all the
Face Off is my
Robert Shaw
favorite Travolta
movies?
movie.
Face Off is your favorite Travolta movie?
Well, can I be honest?
Not Look Who's Talking To?
No. You ever seen Blowout?
No.
I love Blowout.
That's a good Travolta movie.
Yeah.
Grease is a great Travolta movie, but it's different.
We'll have to show Blowout. one
Blowout
day.
is really
It's a
good.
rip off of Blow Up.
Well, it's an homage.
What about Michael?
Oh my god.
I can't really watch John Travolta. I saw him a long time ago in this one movie. It was called Civil or something.
Oh, I love that movie.
Where
I know what you're talking about. It's he
Where-
plays the lawyer who does the water treatment thing in Medford, the pollution.
No, there's one where he's in the movie, racism is flipped. And
Oh, that's White Man's Burden.
Oh,
White Man's Burden. Oh my God, I saw that in the movies.
that was awful.
I think
And
I
never seen
didn't
it.
leave,
watch
but
it
I should have.
ever
What about
because of that
Primary
movie.
Colors?
Yeah.
That
He was good as Clinton.
ridiculous.
He's a good actor. Pulp Fiction brought him back.
No, I'll tell you, my favorite Travolta film is, other than Grease, of course, is I
Got
Got
all this love for
Thrills,
Grease.
They're multiplying.
That's Grease.
No,
That's
yeah,
Grease
that's
too.
Grease. He was
Or
in
is that
Grease.
Grease?
Yeah,
too.
no, Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, well, you know what? I never liked Saturday Night Fever.
Really?
Never cared
It's
for it.
such in its time. That's a movie that's just. In
I
its
saw
time.
Grease on Saturday Night Fever, at a double feature.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
But
What other movie?
no, Get Shorty, the original, not the bad sequel.
Right. Did you watch the TV series Get Shorty?
No, I liked the movie so much I didn't want to watch the series.
The TV series was good. Very
You know,
good. Different take on it. But well done. Yeah, I like Get Shorty a lot. Okay, enough of Travolta. Except that
you know what I really hated him in? Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Good way to
My
get us
God,
back.
he could hardly be worse.
Well,
when you
but
compare
again,
him
is
to
that
Robert
his
Shaw,
fault? Is that his fault or writing? Because
or direction.
Because let's talk about.
I bet he was a big enough star at that time that he was making some of those decisions on how to take the character.
Because again, his character was a stockbroker or something, right?
Yeah,
So
you
this
could tell
was-
by the prison lingo he was using,
Right.
that he was definitely a big stockbroker.
So but he's also wasn't he like communicating to the outside world on a computer or something while that was going on?
Don't
Was that
bring the computer
Swordfish?
thing into it.
Oh my God! You just bring up. Is this just a Travolta fest for you? What's
No,
going
I
on?
said- the computer
Swordfish.
thing.
I think I only remember parts of it.
Swordfish?
Which
But-
parts? Halle Berry's parts?
Yeah, just the part with Halle Berry.
Okay, there you go.
I thought that was pretty.
We shouldn't even say
They've
that.
already
We do not
established that
condone
there's
that.
no internet in the
What?
tunnel.
Yeah, how can they? Right.
Yeah,
But
they
some guy,
established that there's no internet in the tunnel. Meanwhile, this guy is
some
live
kid is
streaming
right,
it.
live streaming.
And
the
you
whole
know,
thing.
Travolta's watching the news of it, and the networks are running the live stream when they get it, and he doesn't ever switch around. Whatever networks he's watching, we're sitting there making that editorial decision. Hey, we're running this story about this hijacking. Hey, we could get this live feed of
Well, isn't
inside
that-
the train, but let's not do it.
Isn't that also Gandolfini was watching that live feed and heard the voice? Was that how he did it?
I think he may have heard it earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
We probably
So-
should have watched the new version.
We don't need to watch a new
Well,
version.
you know what?
I
They
saw
want
it
to get-
once. That's
here's
all
the
I needed.
second.
I wanted to see it to compare, but that's all.
I recently watched it too to compare it. But here's another thing: they wanted to go higher. It wasn't bad enough that the guy was greedy. You know, it was an indictment. The film was an indictment of capitalism, essentially.
The second one.
The second one. It's not enough
Well,
that the guy kills people.
this was after the recession, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not seen the remake, so
You didn't?
no.
Oh man, you should definitely
love
not
it.
see it.
Should
Yeah,
I track down the
suggest
TV
you don't
movie?
see it. No, the TV
I would
movie. I
see
saw the
the
TV
third
movie.
Hellraiser film before I would watch it
Well,
again.
I did see the TV movie with Vincent D'Onofrio played Mr. Blue, and that was and the only different that what they shifted
Female
was
detective?
that they added a female detective that was with Garber. They were going more. Garber character was more of a psychological, like he was. Where Matthau was just a detective.
Yeah.
You know, obviously he's using psychology and all that stuff to get what he wants, but he's just a detective.
Well, if they're
So
writing it for TV, they definitely need to add backstory and more.
No, there was no.
depth
Well,
into the
there was no
characters.
backstory, but they added more characters. So
Okay.
Lauren Bracco played
Lorraine Bracco.
Lorraine Bracco played the Garber's partner. I don't know if his name was Garber in the thing. I don't think it was. They added a woman as Miss Brown was a woman who ends up in the train befriending a woman who had 2 kids. They added 2 kids in the TV one. That Mr.
Wait a
Blue-
minute. One of the I hadn't seen this film in a very long time. One of the hijackers is a woman.
Yes, she played Mr. Brown. They probably called him Mr. Brown.
That
In the show,
shows
in the
how things have
television show.
liberated.
Well, that was
Became liberated.
1990. I don't know when
That
that
was
came
a
out.
television show. no?
Yeah.
A television movie.
No, but it shows women's liberation.
Well-
Well, she couldn't have gotten that job back in the old days.
So they were okay. That's great. I don't know
She
why.
would have been stuck to being a secretary, or maybe.
Well, they
giving her-
killed her off pretty. You know, I think
Okay.
because Brown gets killed in our version as well. I say our version.
Yeah.
I didn't do it, but the '74 version. Yeah. And the only other it was amazing.
Did they give her a stutter?
No, she didn't stutter, but she, you know, they did. There was some backstory because the reason she was trying to help
She was trying to help her kids get through cancer.
the conductor on the train was a woman too. That was the other thing.
Oh, okay.
But what they did is they added these 2 little kids that the conductor befriended because it was maternal, and then the Miss Brown was maternal to the conductor.
The Tony
and then they
Scott
end up-
version sounding better.
But they end up shooting the conductor lady, and Miss Brown goes crazy. It was more like the '74 version. I'm talking about the TV show now, without any of the humor, zero humor. It was straight up.
Well, that was the great thing about this movie. For one thing, when you cast, Walter Matthau as a detective. Now he's been doing around this period detective work.
Well, he did some serious, like played.
Laughing Detective,
Right.
and there was another crime film where he robbed a bank where mob was storing its money. I forgot. That was a pretty good one. But mostly he was a comic actor. So,
well, he didn't start off that way. You know, remember?
No,
in,
but he had a talent for it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's humor based in reality too.
Yeah.
It wasn't waka waka waka. Although he
Yeah.
got that way towards the end with the Odd Couple stuff and some of the other stuff he did.
Grumpier
towards the
Old
end.
Men.
He did. He was in Grumpier Old Men. That was with Jack Lemmon and him.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So yeah,
and that one where dance instructors on a cruise ship.
That's Grumpier Old Men. It's
Grumpier. No, this was another one. I forgot what it was called.
Well, he also did Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
So he was funny in that, but again, he's drunk, drinking beer on the giving
kids beer.
Again,
the new Bad News Bears wasn't bad.
But there was
Billy
no
Bob
they
Thornton.
didn't. Well, but Billy Bob is wild, so that was how they. Walter Matthau was actually serving kids beers in the dugout.
Well, I saw you serving kids beer. You gave one to Hassan.
Yes. Well, he's he's old enough.
I do not have a beer right now in case my mom is
It's
listening.
gone. Oh.
Yeah.
Did you text your mom yet in this?
She
Let her
knows
know
I
what's
am.
going on.
It's okay.
We're all gonna get T-shirts that said, "I'm texting my mom."
I just want to point out that Ralph, although you gave Hassan a beer, he did not drink it. He gave it to just Al, who's like sucked down a few of them.
This is true.
That's true. So, back to my movie.
Back to your movie.
And Walter Matthau and the humor in this. The humor is all based in, like I said, relationships. So his relationship with Jerry Stiller, and that carried to when Jerry is talking to Mr. Blue, who also had a relationship with Garber, albeit it's cop going after the criminal, but they had a relationship to the point where Garber wasn't on the phone one time. Jerry Stiller gets on the line, and Mr. Blue says, "Where's Garber?"
This is Pelham. What happened to Garber? Even great men have to pee.
Or something to that
Right?
effect.
And it's just so good.
And I'll tell you what, the conversations between Garber and Gray are all very believable, as opposed to, they don't go into their personal, unlike...
Well, again, Travolta's screaming and...
Yeah, it's like, hey, you're Catholic, and they're getting into all this sort of like...
Well, it's cut. If you look at the way that's cut, with the Tony Scott just flying all over the place. The 74 Pelham is just straight up, point the camera, let them talk, let the dialogue happen.
But it looked great.
Great.
That was a really great cinematography job.
But again, simple.
I liked it better than the cinematography of the Scott version, which I thought was too
flashy. Well, I mean, if you like Tony Scott, I mean, that's what he does.
I mean, I like, what was that? He did Enemy of the People, right?
Enemy of the State.
How do you feel about Baz Luhrmann?
Oh, I think he's very colorful, but I like his earlier films better.
Where'd that come from?
Well, he said Tony Scott was too flashy.
Yeah, but Baz is flashy, like musical flashy.
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's acceptable in a musical.
No, any movie. Look at Man on Fire. Look at True Romance, which is actually one of his more subdued versions, but that's when he was just starting to get going.
Look at Natural Born Killers. Oh, sorry, he didn't do that one.
No, he did not.
Yeah, not giving anything away. That we may end up doing that.
Well, that's a lot of formats going on in that movie. Yeah. But anyway, we digress. So again, this movie is in the wheelhouse for me for reality. It's a brilliant crime thriller, right up to the end. And like you said, in the 2009 version, the mayor has to solve the crime. They don't solve this crime in the 74 version until the last frame of the movie.
Yeah,
with the famous sneeze.
And then that music begins.
And then it hits. Like
Farty horns.
Like a truck, it hits. And that little schmirk that Walter Matthau gave.
Which he's great at. I love
Yeah.
I love me some Walter Matthau.
I just want to say, I think this would be a nice view on like AMC or Turner Movie Classics. Like to watch it on TV, it would be good.
Well, I mean, I think you could say that.
I think if you're like going to pay $13 to go to the movie theater,
back then
you might not want to. That
it
might
wouldn't have been a nickel. This wasn't done in 1920, and a movie-ola you got to turn, and you see the horse. Look at the horses jogging. That costs a nickel. The horse is jogging around. The thing is spinning. That's a nickel.
Oh man, times were so much simpler back then for y'all.
Right, that was entertainment.
Yeah.
Right. This, probably back in the day was $3.50 maybe,
I
but
think
that's not the
just
point.
Like $2.
But that's not the point. I mean, yes, most movies that were done in the 70s wouldn't play now. They'd be and well,
I
obviously,
disagree. You don't think Godfather would play now?
No.
Oh, Godfather would definitely play.
I don't know. I think it would be too long.
100%.
I think it would be too
not
long and not cut fast enough.
Yeah.
They'd give it to Tony Scott.
I mean, here's the question: Would
Rest in peace, Tony.
millennials sit and watch The Godfather?
Yes.
Probably. No.
Why? Why? I don't buy that, because how many movies have come out and failed that are supposed to be that the audiences just don't. They're too slow. They're too There's more places.
I know lots of millennials. A lot of people I work with who are in the business have not seen The Godfather.
Never seen The Godfather. Never seen French Connection.
Yeah, never seen.
Let's go down the list.
Well, French Connection isn't like a staple.
It was the best picture.
I'm about to throw you off the podcast. Okay, this podcast was designed to pay tribute to movies that Sean and I watched in the 70s. We invited you guys in, and you don't say things like that, okay? And we're going to make you watch the French Connection. You're
That's
gonna
like
see why.
somebody saying something bad about Little Miss Sunshine.
Well, oops.
Watch it, Murphy.
Yeah.
You don't talk crap about Miss Sunshine.
No, but I mean, movies, you're right.
People are allowed not to see part 3 of The Godfather.
I agree with that.
It's
Although
only sinful if they miss 1 and 2.
I enjoyed part 3, but not as much as I enjoyed.
People would go see to pay Jaws in the movie theater. If it was released now, they still go see shark movies.
That's okay, but that's different.
What shark
That's
movie
different.
was in theaters last?
The one
47
with,
feet
Blake,
below, or
that
whatever.
one, and Blake. What's her name? The
Shallows.
Shallows.
Oh,
The Shallows.
right.
What about Sharknado? Oh, Sharknado's on TV.
Notice how they all put those shark movies out the same week as Shark Week on the Discovery Channel.
People love and hate sharks.
Or Shark Fest on National Geographic.
They all love sharks.
They're different.
But to say that people wouldn't go Zodiac, well, people didn't go.
People didn't go and see that one either.
They didn't go.
They went to see 7.
Well, 7.
How was 7's box office numbers?
No, that made money.
I think it made.
I paid to see it twice.
Yeah, I'd see that again. I'd see that in the movie theater again. I'd see Zodiac in the theater again. I would see this if they did a revival of this one, 74 version.
TLC's like TCM's putting out, revivals.
Yeah,
I would
they do cruises.
Yeah,
they do movie cruises.
I would go on a movie
oh
cruise
my
if they
gosh,
showed
that would
this
be
movie.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I don't think an audience wouldn't go. Like a revival of Taking of the Pelham from 74 might play. Jaws played. They did a 30th anniversary of Jaws. People went to see it. Of course, they projected it on video. Probably a DVD was playing. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, though. One film that people would always get audiences, because I lived near this theater in Baltimore called The Senator, and they would have these big revivals. And one film that always got a crowd was 2001.
I don't get that.
People would come, literally people
get
would
high?
come from 5 states to see it.
To get high, what would they do?
People would drive down from New York to see that on the big screen at the Senator.
It's amazing.
I think people would go see Clockwork Orange. Was that was
Oh, God.
70s, right?
Yeah, but
I took 40 people.
that might be
when
68, actually. No,
that's
2001
like
is 68, right?
Yeah. This is like 71 or 72. I took 40 people. I had a thing called Baltimore Film Club. We had like 40 people to see Clockwork Orange at the Charles, and we got out and we had a thumbs up, thumbs down vote. Every guy thumbs up. Every girl thumbs down.
That movie is
should
brutal.
not be a surprise.
That movie is brutal.
But it's a very, it's a.
You
great
talk about
movie.
the penis in
Louis C.K.
Not Louis C. Whoop, that's 4. The penis in Birdman.
Yeah.
Ed Norton's penis. The penis they use
the
in
boner.
That they rape. They
the
beat the
boner.
guy with that giant penis statue. I mean, why? Of course. I mean,
And they rape women. It's just like it's gleefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't. Again, that's another movie that.
And that's something we should probably see that movie and discuss it, because I think there are some great themes in that movie and ideas worth exploring. But you got to ask yourself, is the content so reprehensible that it overwhelms the?
Well, let's ask our
overwhelms the
resident
themes?
nihilist over there, Al, Mr. Gray.
Just
Yes.
Al. Brown.
The violence in those movies. There's no violence in 74. There is people getting shot, right? But it's not over the top. I'm talking about Pelham.
Yeah.
Not over the top.
Yeah. Well, it would have been different if they got shot, then their car flipped off a bridge, broke into flames,
It's
and
a 2009
killed a
version.
kindergarten.
But like you're talking about Clockwork Orange. Audiences today, you think they could handle that movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think those
A general audience?
No, it would never.
It took me a while because I
Well,
started
I mean,
it.
what
and
do
I
you
had
consider
no
general
idea.
audience? Like, I mean, people
go to the mall.
People
They
at
go
the
to the
mall.
mall. I'm not talking about going and finding an art house. People who go
Well,
look
I
for
mean,
movies.
people go see the Saw movies. Those make a lot of money.
I think
That's different because it's not realistic.
But that is like dumbed
It's
down
hard.
violence. That's just awful. That's
This
porn.
was like
Torture
Clockwork
porn.
Orange was like it was like disgusting and real. Like
But it's not real. Again, like you and your realism, and that movie that movie very surrealistic. Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Clockwork
one?
Orange.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I thought it was like a little too much at first, and it wasn't until like later that I realized, okay, they really wanted to show how bad this guy was, so they could have to like conform him. But
Well, I mean, that's the theme is
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
breaking somebody down, and
but sorry,
but
it
every
took me a while to
every
get past the first few
Kubrick movie
scenes.
has some theme that he's
Yeah, it's all
supposedly
usually,
buried
it's all
way
about,
in there.
Well, it's all about the dehumanization.
What's the theme?
They
of,
made him good.
right. Let's.
Yeah, 'cause
I
we're
want to
going
talk about
into
my
different-
movie.
Yeah.
What's the theme, Sean? Anybody answer this? Mr. Gray, Mr. Green, Mr. Brown. I'm Mr. Brown.
Mr. Just.
What's the
Gray.
theme of the 1974 Pelham?
There is no theme. There is
It's
no,
a crime.
It's just
It's a crime drama.
procedural. Yeah.
There's no subtext. It's like we
There's
have to
no-
get the money to them, or they're going to kill people.
It's an episode of Law and Order.
Is that a bad
It's-
thing?
It's a good episode of
It's
Law
a
and Order.
very good episode of Law and Order. Is that a bad thing? You said it like it's a bad
Can
thing.
we put that Law and Order thing in when that comes out?
Absolutely. Doom doom. You said that like it's a bad thing.
Law and Order to me is very boring. It's by the book every time. I mean,
guess,
at,
see, again,
at least
I'm so
can
simple.
watch 50
I love.
episodes.
I
At
could
least-
sit and watch.
at least this had comedy. Like I enjoyed the comedy in this, like because I did not expect
I wouldn't call it comedy. I would call it humor.
humor. Okay,
I called it banter.
Oh, good definition.
Is
there.
that? Did I do well?
No, I think that's great because a lot of times people, I think it's humor. It's
Yeah.
not really comedy.
Right.
Comedy is
Comedy be a
misleading.
pie in the face. That's
Yeah.
comedy.
Yeah.
Waka waka waka.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Law and Order has no comedy, no humor.
right.
Law and Order. So this is not a Law and Order episode. I
This
guess I'm
feels
arguing.
like a high,
I'm arguing with you.
This feels like a high budget Law and Order episode
Okay, but
With humor.
again, okay, let's.
with humor.
But again,
Dun, dun, dun.
because they don't go. So in the end of the 2009 version, Garber shoots Mr. Blue in the gut, kills him at the end. It's Garber's redemption.
Yeah.
Right. What does Garber do at the end of the 74? Does he kill Mr. Blue? Who kills Mr. Blue?
No, Mr. Blue kills himself for no apparent reason.
Except that he knew he was caught and he wasn't going to go back to prison.
I bought that.
Were
I-
they not
I-
allowed
he
to show
electrocutes
people?
himself.
Or were they not allowed to show the good guys killing the bad guys back then? Yeah. Because that happened.
No, that was,
in
I
Ma-
think, and as a
in
matter of fact, I
Marathon
think
Man,
Pelham was
too.
the first movie that they gave an R rating, which is why
For the
the
language.
mayor for the language does that shit piss. He does that whole list of
Yeah.
swears that you couldn't say normally. He laid out the whole thing.
The buck stops with you.
Oh, shit.
God help us.
Shit, piss, fuck.
It's weird because like in Marathon Man too, the bad guy kills himself. So it's like, were they
No, he
just
didn't.
like
The bad guy fell down the steps and
he didn't kill himself?
yeah, he rolled down the steps
It
and
was his
garroted
fault.
himself with and the little diamond fell out of his
Yeah.
stomach.
Yeah. That was one that
I
the
missed that part.
Well,
coroner
no, I want to
wouldn't
get
be able
right,
to keep
Mr.
that one.
Al, Mr.
Call him out.
Just
Mr.
call me
Gray.
Al.
Okay. Can I call you Al?
Yeah.
I keep using that joke.
Just Al.
Every
Just
time
call
I
him
say
Al.
that joke, you have to sing the song now. Thank you.
Al.
He killed
Call him
himself because he was going to go back to prison, and he wasn't going to go back to prison.
Well, we don't know if he's ever been. He just didn't want to.
And Garber was like, remember he said he was going to bribe him with the money?
Yeah.
And Garber says, I've had my take.
Yeah,
this
my
month."
accountant told me I've taken all I can.
But Garber didn't roll and do a ninja roll and shoot him in the stomach.
I'm
He just
not
let him-
asking for a ninja roll. I'm asking for like.
By the way, can I say ninja roll or is that?
I don't know. Is that a sushi item?
I don't know. Anyway,
I just think.
you wanted him to fight his way out?
Yeah, I wanted him to try. I just don't. I don't see why you would. He has the money at that point. He's met his goal, so why wouldn't he try to get out of it rather than just kill himself?
Had the
I
drop
think
on
he
him.
had the drop on him. Yeah.
Well,
Garber had the
think
drop
about
on
it
him.
this way: what if he did, and then Garber just shoots him in the leg or something, and then he ends up being in jail with a bum leg? That's even worse.
Yeah, it doesn't help you. In
I
the
love the
shower.
button they added at the end of that scene, though, too. Okay, so Garber comes in, Mr. Gray, Mr. Blue electrocutes himself. He puts his foot on the third rail. Oh, by the way, that brings up the only picayune thing I have about this movie. The only thing that bothered me about this movie. When Mr. Blue electrocutes himself and he flops down, right? So he's, you can see Robert Shaw's eyes look to where he's going to fall. And it drives. Next time you see the movie, I hope I don't ruin it for everybody. Watch that scene, because if he really electrocuted
he was only
himself,
faking his death. You see, that answers Al's.
If he really was going to electrocute himself and he did what he would flop and you wouldn't see it. But you know that Shaw's looking for the mattress because he doesn't want. They shot that down in a subway, an abandoned subway.
I guess because he's a mercenary who's been in Africa doing.
But he doesn't
deeds.
have his gun. His gun is.
It doesn't matter. You would think he would have some training in order to get out of the
Here
situation.
we go. These guys need. Spider-Man. I don't know what you need. It's okay. That's why this film.
I want to see Mathau force Shaw's face onto the third rail and the face melts.
Again, the reason I love these movies is they're based in some sort of reality.
Yeah. Now,
right?
The ending of the Tony Scott version is absolutely ridiculous, because he's pointing a gun at him. Now, for one thing, the police all suspect that Denzel Washington is corrupt, and therefore they are also thinking he could be in on it. They hint that they think he could possibly be in on it.
Right. So what's the idea that Denzel?
But the thing is, if you've, I know the police. I know the FBI. I've done work with them. And
I'm sorry, but that's a name drop.
I didn't. Well,
FBI. That's pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
Whoa, the FBI.
It isn't like I've done a number of narrative shorts that have won a combined 6 Emmys for the FBI.
Give that
What was that, local or national Emmys?
Doesn't matter.
They were regional.
How many do you have, Al?
Damn it, I'll take those
I have
Emmys
0.
There you go. So you know what?
Yes, they were regional Emmys.
But
they were on national broadcast on the Pentagon.
When you do your movie, or next time you do your movie, bring your major awards that you've won, or any participation awards that you've won. Bring those in.
There's no way they're going to let one for sure a criminal and the other a civilian point guns at each other.
Again,
they would tell him to put his gun down, or they would shoot. They would not
you see what happens
one person shoot another person.
Do you see what really happens when people pull guns out in real life? People go mental. They don't sit there and wait and watch it happen. And all that.
They would just shoot him.
Right. So Walter doesn't want to shoot. He's using his brains, and he even grimaced when he electrocuted.
Yeah. But
the button on that scene, which I just thought gets back to the sexism of the movie, if we're going to say that, is remember the undercover cop jumped out, and you realize he gets up, and it's a long-haired undercover cop, shoulder-length hair. Who jumps out of the train. He's actually the guy that kills Mr. Brown and causes Mr. Blue to shoot Mr. Gray, take his money. So Alonzo's gone. Mr. Gray is gone. The only one left now is Mr. Green, who is the motorman who helped set the whole thing up. So he's the only one that gets out. But Walter sees someone laying on the tracks
with
long hair and leans over and says, "Hang on, ma'am. It's the cop with the long hair," and it buttons everything.
She was a little different than what he expected,
right? And then the final button of the movie, and we'll wrap this up, is when they catch Mr. Green with the sneeze. So through the whole movie, Mr. Green has been sneezing into the microphone,
like this show where I've been coughing into the microphone.
And Garber kept saying, "Gesundheit." Gesundheit. Yeah. And what happens at the end? They have Mr. Green in his house. He seems to get off. He hid the money in the oven. They didn't find the money. As they're closing the door, after he's ranted at them about accusing him.
Yeah.
If
he had just let him go.
Right. If he had just shut up, but he's ranting about how can you do this to me, because he had a past indiscretion with them, and that's why they're checking on him. As they're closing the door, the big sneeze happens. And then what happens? What do you hear?
That stupid theme song.
Some farty horns.
Yeah.
Ba-da-bum. Yeah. End of movie. Perfect movie, all wrapped up.
Perfect movie. This is
in my mind a perfect movie.
I when I think of procedurals from the 70s, I think the two big ones in my mind are this one and French Connection, which won Best Picture 71, if I'm not mistaken.
And All the President's Men, which is a procedural in a different way.
Yeah,
but again, very straightforward. I know, but straightforward.
Yeah, but
French Connection. There was I'm trying to think the one with there's another one with
not the French Connection too.
No, that was good though. No, the one I'm just trying to think.
Too.
Yeah. There's a sequel.
You're thinking of 7-Ups or Serpico?
7-Ups is good. Serpico is good.
Good Day, Dog Day Afternoon.
Well, that's not a cop one, sort of. That is, but it isn't. I don't know.
The
we
one I
can
liked
think about
later
it.
was, oh no, that was maybe 80, was Prince of the City.
Super Cops was another
Yeah,
one.
Super Cops.
But
But
Prince of the City
I
was
like,
very good.
Yeah, Prince
That's
of
a
the City
long one.
may be
You'd
my
lose your
favorite.
mind.
Yeah.
Now that one, Prince of the
I
City.
just like to
which
say
think,
I can watch long movies. So.
But Prince of the City, I think, actually was a series at one point. Was it not? No,
It may have been later, but
because that's a movie you could now serialize on Netflix. Prince of the City.
It'd be a great thing, and Treat Williams, he was so good in it.
Very good.
And so was Jerry Orbach as
Very
his
good.
father.
All of them. We should.
And you know, Treat Williams, I tell you, he was like hot. He was on fire. Then his career went whoosh. So I'm thinking that there was.
Was that after 19? No, was that after 1941?
Please cut that out.
Remember, he was in 1941.
Yeah, nah.
Steven Spielberg. Yeah, he was. Treat Williams was in Spielberg's 41.
We can't blame him for that.
No, I don't know.
Is that why John Belushi died?
1941.
Yeah.
No, that killed his career almost.
Yeah.
Spielberg, it almost killed his career too.
Yeah,
he survived.
That one was a
he
big
survived
blow.
that one.
But I like taking a Pelham 1-2-3 better than the French Connection because
They're
of the
different.
humor.
Yeah, they're different.
You know, French Connection is just
French Connection has
grim.
humor, but it's based in you're kind of laughing at people, not
sort of like when they bust that bar and he sort of
the Poughkeepsie line. What's that? Do you pick your toes
at Poughkeepsie and all? And, he takes everyone's drugs and then he mixes them all together and everything. You know,
different. There's humor in that, but again, it's based in total reality with Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider's characters.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, back to Pelham, and then we're going to end it right now. I think it's as a movie that I carry great. What am I trying to say? I just really enjoy it. I just great admiration for this movie. I watch it all the time, and I just think it's just very well done. And it does, like I said, it fits into the mold of the kind of movies I like, which is just straightforward and not a lot of flash. Although I love Man on Fire, Tony Scott's movie with Denzel. I could watch Denzel do pretty much anything. But I just, again, like Zodiac fit that too. It's just this long movie about how you catch somebody.
Yeah.
And I thought it just worked very well.
So you really like Zodiac?
Love Zodiac.
Okay.
Zodiac is another one I think
that's one we'll be exploring one day.
Maybe that's a long one. That's a good one. And again, Fincher doesn't move that camera much. He just keeps it all in frame, and things are the movements are very methodical.
Yeah.
Nothing. Even Scorsese moves the camera a ton compared to what David Fincher does. Anyway, I don't know why I got off track with that. So I think that's it for this one.
It's a podcast. You're allowed to get off track.
I think we can, right? A little bit. I hope I made my point about the movie. I don't know if it helped you guys want to see more like these, but you're going to be seeing more like these because my wheelhouse is the 70s movies, and I think we're going to watch a lot of those.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the movies you guys are going to throw at us and some of the explanations we're going to have down the road. But that's it for this edition. And until next time, thanks, guys, for doing this.
Thanks for bringing this film to us, Ralph.
You're welcome.